All right, with the most ghetto fade out of all time on my end, welcome to day 5 of Scoop season. Oh, God. Day 5 of Scoop season. Very professional over here today, but at least I have guest live, me live, and music off, so we're making progress. We've got a jam packed day of scoops to go through. I want to say up front, while the NBN cards were spoiled by Slumscast, we're not going to be talking about them today, mostly out of interest, out of time, partially because Neuropanzer can come on tomorrow, and partially because I think the drill scoops are great and you should listen to the Slums cast. But with that said, we've got 3 fantastic guests. I'm going to have them introduce themselves and say how long they've been playing Netrunner and a little bit about their Netrunner journey. So first up, Jamie, if you want to give yourself a quick introduction.
Hello, I'm Jamie. I am the rules manager at Null Signal. I've been playing for so long, since the most recent pack had Jackson Howard in it. And I have gone from just a player to a player and event judge, and then to a playtester, and then to doing the UFAC things, and then when the FFG era ended, I've been on the rules team the entire time that Null Signal has existed. And meanwhile, I've also been a player that just really likes to build lots of weird decks.
For sure. All right, Scorpi, I've got you up next on the lineup for an introduction.
Cool. Hi, I'm Scorpi, aka Patrick, he, him. I've been playing Netrunner since around when What Lies Ahead came out, so just after the core set. I got into it because of a Rab Florence review of the game on Rock Paper Shotgun. And of course, a lot of
Oh,
people know me from appearing on Metropole Grid. Is everything all right? You said, oh.
I just meant you're so much cooler than the rest of us who got into it when Shut Up and Sit Down started spamming it in
I
2014.
Hey, listen, that's not the reason I'm cooler than the rest of you. Yeah, so I've
You
been
started
on.
before that, but you've got me beat too. So
Yeah. So I appear on Metropole Grid as Andre's ventriloquist dummy, and of course, I've more recently joined NSG as part of the narrative team. So I'm happy to talk about these cards.
And last and most, but certainly most not least, wow, blah blah blah. Last but most certainly not least, I've got Sindarin. If you want to introduce yourself to the stream.
Hi, I'm Sindarin, also called Alec. I've been playing since I was introduced to the game in 2014. I started playing regularly in 2015, so not as old head as a couple of people here. But yeah, and last year I joined NSG, and I'm spearheading the new website for NSG Net.
I think we're all eagerly awaiting that, though no pressure, but I think we're all excited.
I won't lie, it's a big task, but it's a fun, and it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and I was joking with everyone beforehand. I didn't mean to have all NSG people on again, basically, but don't worry, we have more. I have more non NSG people coming on for later in the season. But I'm excited. As Jamie was talking, somehow shockingly, some NSG people are pretty excited to talk about new cards, and I think we should start with the first of the brand new cards, and I'm going to throw it over to Patrick, who can pronounce the card name, and then I'll read the rest of it.
Those are my only credentials to talk about this card. Yeah, this is Amanuensis. This is the Anarch console coming out alongside Seb. Do you want me to go through the whole card text? Like
I'm
cost.
happy. I'm happy to read that out. So, Amanuensis is a 2-cost hardware console. Gives +1 MU. When your turn ends, place 1 power counter on this hardware if you are tagged. Whenever you remove 1 or more tags, you may remove 1 hosted power counter to draw 2 cards. Limit 1 console per player and 3 influence. And yeah, Patrick, I'll let you resume the middle of your little.
Sure. Yeah, I like this console a lot for Seb. I mean, it fills in the part of Seb that wants to be constantly gaining and then removing tags. So I think it aligns well with that ID specifically. I'm not yet sure how well this is going to work for other runners. We'll see how strong the kind of temporary tag me package is and if it can be imported outside of Seb. But so far, I really like this for him specifically.
Oh, I should quickly shout out. These were spoiled
Hmm.
by the Neon Static crew. They did a
Oh yeah,
fantastic live stream where they were actually playing with all these cards in paper, which I think was a lot of fun. Um, so shout out to that. I will hopefully remember to put a link to Neon Static in the description, but you should definitely check out that stream. And they do some of, I think, I would argue they are the best or second best streamer in the Netrunner space, with myself coming in a nice, comfortable third. Um, but Sindarin, I'd love to hear your takes on we on this
This
console.
console?
Yeah.
I'm not going to rescue
Um,
you every time.
It does seem like super synergistic with Seb. Like as Pat said, I'm not sure how well it's going to work outside there. I'm also kind of initially wary of it because I never like finishing my turn tagged. So there's that. The second ability kind of reminds me of Aaron Marone though, where you can when you're removing tag, like remove a counter to draw cards. So that's definitely interesting. And that's whenever as well. So there
Yeah.
are ways to remove tags at any time. So
Yeah, I think it's worth also mentioning like no free lunch. Like if you include no free lunch in your Seb deck, Wences can draw you like can turn no free lunch into remove a tag and draw 2 cards at paid ability speed, which does definitely seem like it. Maybe that's a include you want to think about.
Mm.
But Jamie, I'd also love to get your take on this card while we're having some discussions.
I'm pretty excited about Seb's whole package. I think the flow of tags in the game has been notorious in different ways over the years, and I think like if you look at a couple years back and what tag punishment existed, and really up until now, all of the tag me rewards that existed for the runners, uh, it was very much all or nothing. There was almost no. The tension is until the point that you decide, okay, I'm tagged now, and that's the rest of the game. And this gives so much more nuance to that, and it says, hey, what if you float a tag on the corpse turn because you're ending your turn with it, and you're not going to be able to no free lunch every time if you're taking a tag every turn, which Seb probably is. And it's probably not so bad. What's the worst they can do to you? You're putting pressure on. You're doing anarch things, and it's and you also still do have like some control. It's like, okay, I know the corp is in a good place. I know that if I stay tagged this turn, they'll definitely trash this resource that I really don't want to lose right now. But on a turn when I'm pushing them a little harder or they're trying to score or something, then yeah, I can see what I can get away with. And that's really cool on several levels. Like a moment to moment gameplay level, on a deck building level, and on a narrative level.
Yeah, great. I think in the interest of time, because we have a lot of this tag package, maybe we'll keep moving, and maybe we can talk about the tag package collectively as we get to the end here. This one I don't need help pronouncing. So this is Friend of a Friend. It is a 3-cost resource subtype connection. It is click trash, gain 5, and remove 1 tag. And then second ability is click trash, gain 9, and take 1 tag. Use this ability only if you are not tagged. And this is 1 influence out of Anarch. So, I mean, this very clearly goes in Seb right away. Sindarin, I'm going to throw to you first for your takes on Friend of a Friend.
yeah, I'm like initially I see 3 cost, and that for something that's 1 use, I'm like initially maybe not so keen on it, but like with Seb, when you can just get that out cheap and then just the burst money, it's pretty swingy, and like I'm actually really eager to give this a try.
Yeah, it's if you're gaining a tag from another source, you can get to install friend of a friend for 1 credit, and then you can immediately click friend of a friend and gain effectively 4 credits and remove the tag, which is just a nice little 1-2 punch for you know that amount of effort. Uh, Jamie, you got any quick thoughts on friend of a friend?
What is the like going rate for how many credits you get for 2 clicks and take a tag? Like there's a criminal event that basically does that, right? There's rogue trading, which is 3 clicks for 6 at a tag, and then you can use it more than
Mm-hmm.
once. But I feel
Oh, you're
like,
thinking of
yeah,
Hot
9
Pursuit,
credits
right?
is so much. Oh yes, hot pursuit is what I'm thinking of.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, so this
Yeah.
is
Okay, cool.
yeah, Hot Pursuit is like a click faster and a credit cheaper, but you have to make a successful run on HQ. Um, but yeah, and this does come down as a resource when you take a tag. Like there's lots of different ways I think to use this. Yeah, I don't know. It definitely seems like an interesting card. I guess Patrick, any quick takes on this so far?
Yeah, I think the most effective part of the card for me is the lack of the little unique diamond. I think Seb decks when they're getting built are going to have trouble with like so many unique connections, and you have to make decisions about how many of each do you want, while you want your deck to be so full of connections to get maximum value. And this one you can easily fit 3 in and not feel bad about. And because you're tricking it out without paying the full install cost, you are getting a lot of value out of these different options. So yeah, another great Seb card that I feels like is a easy 3 of in that deck.
Yeah, this does seem like a kind of foundational 3 of in many senses.
Mhm.
Okay, do we want to talk about the last card, and then maybe we'll talk about now what we've seen for this Anarch package holistically?
Sure.
All
Like
right,
a
so
plan?
the last one here is Manuel Lattes de Mora. No,
I'm in
Mora.
Wenst.
Uh, it is another resource connection. This one costs 2 to install. Whenever you breach HQ or R&D while you are tagged, access 1 additional card. Threat 3, as an additional cost to trash this resource with a basic action, the court must trash 1 card from HQ, and it is 2 influence. Um, so this is like a multi-access piece, that's sort of
Mm.
up there with twinning. Though, Patrick, I remember we discussed a little bit another very important fact about
Oh
this
no, you
card.
can't. I asked you not to bring this up because I won't be able to stop myself. Let's talk about the mechanics first before I really rip into it.
I
Yeah,
like
exactly.
All right, yeah, no, but we can
uh,
go back to the mechanics here.
I love the twists on like your basic R&D interface type effect that we're getting in this set. Like last in Automata Initiative, we got Eru, who is a kind of a very weird R&D interface, sort of, but only with herself and Divide and Conquer. um, and now we've got Pretty Mary and Manuel that are just like stacking on these extra axes with different hoops to jump through, and a lot of them work together really nicely, and it's just a fun little puzzle. And I that's basically the deck that the Neon Static folks were playing with Seb last night. Is they put together all of these multi-access resources and said, okay, let's deep dig with a run on archives. And it
Yeah,
was
it
super fun to
was
watch.
what was it? It was using divide and conquer, right? With Manuel and Iru to just kind of do very deep digs on archives. Um,
Mm, I like that a
and
lot.
and yeah, just Vectors was asking, is that Daniela Jorge Ignacio in the art? And no, that is Sonny LeBeau.
I wish it was anyone else.
Getting just brutally murdered by the NSG narrative team in terms of her characterization. Because apparently she's the kind of mom who bribes to have her kids' college grades modified. But
I want to make sure everyone knows I took no part in this flavor text. Sunny is a perfect mom, and she would never do this.
I think we don't have all the context here. I don't want to make assumptions.
Sindarin, we haven't gotten to hear your takes on this card yet first, so I want to make sure you get some oxygen in here.
I mentioned before, like, not ending my turns tagged, but like, if you're playing this in Zeb and they want to get rid of it at threat 3, like having an additional cost to get rid of 2 cards is wild. Like that's a steep cost in addition to the 2 credits, and as Jamie said too, like multi-access, and as like I was watching Andre earlier, multi-access wins games. So yeah, I really like this. I think this is going to be super powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really notable that like both Manuel and Sebastian, like they will stack. So it's the corp. If the corp wants to trash your multi-access card that you probably put down for no credits, they have to spend 2 cards from their hand and a click and 2 credits. And then, it's still legal for a hot second. Dummy Box can just prevent the trash anyway. So, we're starting to get back into that real wireless net pavilion kind of zone of, oh yeah, I'm tagged, but it's not really a risk for me because it's the corp, you're just going to be suffering. But
I wish I didn't like the mechanical text of this card so much. I'm going to have to put this in a deck and then have to read that flavor text every single time.
Well, maybe if this card does go off, maybe you can get OP to do a commission for it, and surely that will not be character assassination on Sunny. Notes to self: make sure it's still character assassination.
The character assassination is the people reading into the flavor text. I think the context is not there, and you're all making assumptions.
I did. Brennan suggested that maybe it's the professor who's blackmailing Sunny by holding Sunny's kids' grades hostage. That's a possibility. It's not what I believe.
Yeah, that wouldn't be an obvious reading of the scene, but okay. So we've now seen what feels like the full or most of the Seb package, right? So we've got Sebastian, we've got what else? We've gotten an eye for an eye. We've got
core economy resource that you're going to be recurring a bunch with privilege access. We've got some multi-access pieces that help you close once you've got your engine running. We've got wheels, which is just does so many things for Sebastian.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, even just being able to clicklessly like take a tag seems potentially quite good for Sebastian, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I get to just install a card paying 2 less, so I can spend a click to draw and then install that card for free, which is quite good.
It certainly, like, all these cards, they make a lot of sense with Seb, of course, and like Eru with these cards with Seb revealed now makes a lot more sense, as we mentioned. Of all of these, I feel like Manuel is the one that's most convincing me that the self-tagging can work outside of Seb. But still, like, I'm looking forward to putting all these cards together in a set package pretty soon.
Yeah, I guess we should maybe ask the question of, like, can you make a Hoshiko deck that uses Manuel, and just, like, rogue trading friend of a friend and dummy box or something, and just says, yeah, I'm not going to install things as cheaply, but, maybe drawing a card every turn makes up for it. I don't know. It'll be a interesting thing to figure out.
Yep.
Sindarin or Jamie,
I think a click and 2 credits is pretty good if you're doing the thing. If you're not doing the thing, then yeah, you don't want to be Seb. But if you're doing the thing, then I think the value you're getting is right, and I don't think Hoshiko will be able to be as effective with this package.
But Manuel does work with a pure tag me, whereas Seb really demands like the ephemeral tags kind of strategy.
Definitely.
Yeah, so you can actually just play
There's
Manuel
no reason not
in
to
counter
slap Manuel
right?
in a tag me deck.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Note
mean,
that
maybe.
the official wording of counter surveillance is weird, and it's FFG's fault. It's not my fault. It does not technically breach. It replaces the breach with this other procedure. So manual does not directly stack with counter surveillance.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. FF counter surveillance is an odd one, but Manuel does allow those counter surveillance decks, especially like these have fallen out of favor, but these used to be very popular out of Saya, who would play like tag me for a bit and then go for a big counter surveillance dig. And like while influence is not trivial to get Manuel into Zaya, like it does kind of synergize well where you get to make money as you're running centrals and getting tags and things,
Mhm.
which is quite cool.
I like
Uh,
that combo, especially with how Zaya can really pressure HQ, and if they're having to trash something from HQ to get rid of Manuel, that could potentially work together.
Small deck size, so you could probably pretty consistently set up Eru, Manuel, uh, and Mary, and get your 4 digs and 4 credits on archives. Of
mhm.
course, then you got to go clear the tag, probably, because you're not Seb and you don't have the defense.
I mean, I
But
think you
still,
at
like,
threat 3 you do though, right? We're just saying like, oh, it's a big tempo
only
hit.
for Manuel. Like
Sure. Yeah.
when
Oh,
you,
yeah. But you're not playing those other connections in Zaya. I don't think, at least.
I mean, I have a Zaya deck literally built right now that has Eru and Beatrice in it.
And yeah, Cinder, I
On
want
silence.
to. Cinder, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get a thought or two in on this overall package.
Yeah, I'm just seeing it come together. Everything's synergizing together well. Like I'm really excited to like just be using wheels to get a click for an unsuccessful run to get a tag, and then use that to synergize everything with Seb and the new cards. So yeah, this feels like I'm kind of as excited now with this as I was when all the Arasana like synergy cards were being released.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of saying, oh, this will work this way with this, and then oh, this with that, and like I'm getting that sense now with how everything's sort of really fitting together nicely.
Yeah, this does seem like a very kind of self-contained package that can spin, but also like you can spin it in a couple different ways, which I think is potentially like quite useful. Um, but I think for now we'll maybe move on to the next card to discuss today. We've got Physarum Entangler. This comes to us courtesy of X Flesh and Blood X, who posted this on Twitter and did some promotion and connect networking for NSG. And
They're in the chat as well.
they are in the
Hey, Flesh
chat
Blood.
as well. Yeah, or
Mhm.
were at least. So this is a zero cost 1MU criminal virus Trojan. It says install only on a piece of ice. Whenever you encounter host ice, if it is not a barrier, you may pay 1 credit for each subroutine it has. If you do, bypass that ice. When the core purges virus counters, trash this program. And it is
Hmm.
3 influence. Um, so
Finds a
yeah,
route eventually.
Mhm.
I'm
This
assuming this is.
card, I
Oh, go ahead, Patrick. Sorry.
I was going to talk like thematically. I think this card is a real triumph. Actually, the Physarum Entangler. It's meant to evoke slime molds, the kind of the like organism that you drop in a labyrinth, and it can figure things out eventually because it explores every path, and then the path that is successful it builds upon. So the fact that it is stopped only by barriers, but everything else it can bypass eventually is pretty nice.
Yeah, so Syndrome, I guess, what are your immediate thoughts on where you'd be excited about playing this card?
I think the obvious one is obviously Mercury, right? Beware the bypass. We're also talking earlier. Some my local meta and I like. Would you blindly install this on ice? Like, what are the chances that you're going to hit a barrier or not? Is the big question. Um, So
I
yeah,
would blindly install this so much faster than I would blindly install Femme Fatale. So
that's right. And then, of course, the only other thing that sort of is immediately is apparent is because it's a Trojan. 3 influences steep, but it could show up in Ari.
Yeah, easily. Wait, it is.
the thing about this card is you can't bounce it with Urban Arbitrage because it is a virus.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, I think this card sits in a quite interesting spot. I think it's, people have been calling for Mercury support that wasn't oppressive. If I recall someone streamed today, they described themselves as being quite worried. I'm not sure if Andre is still in the chat. But Patrick, if you want to flame him a little bit, I feel like this is your chance to.
Ooh, nice. Okay, yeah. Give me the ammunition. I'll get to it.
Do you think Andre is a worrywart about the cards in this set?
Are you talking about the amount of bypass?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I didn't catch his stream earlier today, but I share some of his worries. I think bypass is an interesting mechanic, so long as there's not a lot of it in the card pool at once. I don't want to invalidate ice, and I'm still. Oh, he is still in the chat, yeah, and I'm hoping that we still see like the classic Netrunner ice based play that we are used to. But yeah, this is nice for Mercury.
Wait, hold on.
So,
I'm
the first time. Sorry.
Oh my, sorry. I was getting okay. Apologies. I pulled up in the groove at random here because Bob Ranwu made some passing comment about but it's in the groove is going to be great for pairing with wheels, and I just dismissed it as Bob Ranwu doesn't know the card text. In the groove says program on it. No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. So, in the groove, a 4 influence Seb card coming near to the jank meta meetup near you. Okay, apologies about completely derailing the conversation there. Yeah, I guess. So I guess
I do like. Is this the only card other than Femme Fatale that has a scaling cost bypass effect? Because what I do like about that is it doesn't entirely invalidate the text on the ice, right? Like it still matters how many subroutines are on the thing that you're bypassing.
Yeah, I think every other bypass is worded like inside job, right? So it's like just bypass completely, or if it's Abigail, it's like bypass if it's a specific type. So yeah, I think it's the expectation is probably that this does feel like it's a return to Fem, which I think it's interesting how these cards are different and how they're kind of the same, right? The 9 to 0 is quite the jump, right? But there is a bit more counterplay here. There's 2 different angles of counterplay for the corp. Not even counting the fact that the Entangler can just kind of whiff if you're throwing it down blind. And actually, Jamie, another one. A quick question for you in the chat. Can you use this with Blongi? And I'm assuming the answer is no. Because
no, but I don't think you want to. If it is not a barrier, you can bypass it. So adding a subtype would not be helpful.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that too. If funnily enough, Mother Goddess actually becomes essentially unbypassable with this as soon as the barrier gets rezzed. Celestial Spark calling out there is one other scaling cost bypass in the form of Backlund.
And that scales on strength.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the other thing about ice that can matter. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and cool. I actually I like these as bypass mechanisms where they don't just completely ignore the ice. You can't just blindly install this Entangler and let it ride. You have to be either know something about the meta, have seen previous cards in the deck so that you can make educated guesses, or just face check and then make a move. But I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's very true. This card is not the kind of bypass that worries me now that I think about it. I'm also glad we got to move on very quickly from you talking about Mother Goddess, so we don't have to get too deep into eternal chat.
Well, now that Patrick brings it up,
Oh, okay.
I also wanted to just for fun flag sub boost, which you could host on ice to give it barrier status.
That's very funny.
That's a great shout out.
That's
so many avenues of counterplay.
the 0 points eternal format where the corp is sub boosting to turn off a Physarum Entangler. Let's go.
I love the imagery of both sides just slapping cards on top of a single piece of ice until one of them finally builds something unbeatable or gets through.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, oh yeah, then the learner responds with like, "Aha, my banner will sneak me through this."
But no, I have wet work refit.
I do
There's
also,
some pretty interesting interactions that, like, with a lot of the cards that we've seen, even just so far this previous season, that like it makes me want to like have some kind of weird cube of like, oh yeah, let's make these things that sort of matter but aren't really going to be a big deal in any actual format that anyone plays into a important part of the format. And I think a cube is the only way you really do that, aside from like just making dual decks that are weird, but that's less of a format and more of like a standalone thing.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing that I would like, someone was talking about this today as well in the UK chat, and I was like, oh, maybe it's time for random access memories to make a comeback. The format where you just randomly grab some different sets from Netrunner's past and have to build a deck in sort of a time frame. And I don't know, maybe I'll talk to the OP team and see if I can get that, because that was one of my favorite formats, though it tests some of the weirdest skills in Netrunner of lots of card knowledge and spotting combo broken stuff quite quickly.
I never actually did any of the previous round of random access memories events because they were all online, and I don't really play much Dungeon Techie. But yeah, that format is very much my jam, and I really should, if it comes back, or I should get people to do it like in the local group.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. I didn't get to play much, but the idea of, rapidly building a deck in 45 minutes based on randomly assorted cards is pretty intriguing. I want to shout out in the chat, I think it's Vectors who brings back up Backlund Botchkin, who is a perfectly costed connection resource for Seb. 2 costs and takes a tag when you use the ability. That's not bad. It's 3 influence, but
yeah, I mean,
you
it seems
recur
like
it with privileged access.
I will say it seems like a better splash than In the Groove. But yeah, no, that's a Backlund does seem like potentially quite good sub card as well. I did see one question: could this be splashed into Arasana? I would say try it. It definitely seems like a powerful card and will solve some set of problems that Arasana can have. It's not one I'm itching to splash based on what we've seen so far, but I can be wrong about that kind of stuff. So
Arasana
I feel like the set of problems it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Arasana does see what type of ice has been rezzed before she chooses to install. So in that case, she can make better use of Physarum Entangler than others might.
For sure. No, 100% she can make it.
I feel like there are absolutely a significant number of situations where you can solve a problem with Physarum that you cannot solve with Slap Vandal. Either because it's a code gate with 2 meaningful subroutines, or just something that has a bunch of strength boosts being stacked on it by Thunderbolt.
That was my thought too, and especially as you've got simulchips in faction, like you can't UAV it, but you can still shift it around if you need to.
Yeah, simulchip definitely gives you a lot of flexibility to move it. I think like the biggest, is always the question with Shaper decks is is this influence solving a problem for me better than the other thing this card could be doing? And I think that's always going to be the question. Brandon's saying, "Oh, if Ari doesn't want Botulus, she doesn't want this." Yes and no, right? I think there's advantages that Physarum and Tinkler has over Botulus,
Botulus
both
is
in Arsana and
much
otherwise.
Botulus is much closer in the kinds of problems it can solve for you on the spot to Slap Vandal. Like, just because you get one counter when you drop it. And in the longer term, you can solve the problem of multi-subroutine ice. But then that's not so much of doing the Arasana thing, of having like a just-in-time answer.
Yeah, I could easily see this being like a one-off silver bullet, especially if like you can get it early on. Yeah, and it doesn't need to stick around, but it's your early, like an extra tool in your early pressure.
Do you remember a time when a zero cost virus was the scariest sounding thing that there could exist? Like back in the noise days, I wonder if there's a reason, if there's some way to abuse this, like some Augustina kind of build that likes to reinstall a zero cost card. Oh, damn, I'm talking Eternal now.
Yeah. It's so easy to do. There's so many fun cards to think about. This is why Eternal's great. Easy. Eternal is GOAT format. Anyway,
I think this set is going to do all kinds of stuff to Eternal. I think there's some really interesting implications on some of these cards.
Oh, I'm definitely going to be having get some of the people that have been doing a lot of this stuff in Eternal and try and get a stream together where we can just chat about it, because it's such a silly set of interactions to talk about. But we've been talking about Physarum and Taylor for quite a bit. We're a good chunk into the hour, so I want to start talking about some HB cards. We got Warm Reception. It is a 1-cost asset, political and ritzy subtype. When your turn begins, you may install 1 card from HQ. You cannot score that card this turn. If the server is not protected by ice, you may de-res this asset to de-res another installed card. It is 2 influence and 2 to trash out of HB. So this card, along with the next 3 we'll be talking about, all come from the process, which was they did a very nice little podcast where they de-resed and re-resed their audio feed quite a bit. But no, it was they had a very nice chat about all of these 4 cards. But I want to make sure that people can check it out. If you haven't, there'll be a link in the description to this video so that you can listen to. But Sindarin, I maybe want to get your take on this card first.
So seeing this first, like I'm like, okay, this is a lot of cards that deal with de-res and re-res, and I think it'll see more. We'll get more like see the interactions as we're looking at the other cards you're going to show us. But when I initially saw this, I thought this is the sort of thing I'd want to try in like Rungi's NEH deck, where you can just buff cards out.
This is sweet in NEH.
Yeah, because like that NEH will give you enough, all the draw you want to keep a hand full of cards that you can just like keep this going. So, and we've seen some HB like asset spam decks, and I'm not sure how well it fits in those, but yeah, I think I'm really gonna see how this works in NEH.
Yeah, I think that is very clearly like one of the biggest things with this card is like, oh hey, a lot of asset spam decks that like want to have an unprotected political like card on the board also want to use wage workers, and it's like, can you really afford to install 4 cards a turn? I think like if you're near Earth Hub, I think the answer might be yes, right? Like you have this, you have some federal fundraisings going, and like all of a sudden you're drawing just as much. You can actually draw 3 to 4 cards a turn, and make it work. So
you can also like, okay, turn begins, federal fundraising, Warm Reception, get my draw, click regular 3 times, take my wage workers click. You just do so many things.
Yeah, these two federal fundraising and warm reception definitely seem like they worked together quite well. Which I guess they're both political and ritzy, and probably go back to back. So I don't know. Maybe some lore meets synergy, right?
It really that just that first mode on its own is enough to make this card feel pretty worthwhile. Like NEH, like we mentioned, also ASA group is going to love this. Yeah, it's kind of just a free click most turns if you're in an install heavy kind of deck, and then the rest of it, I think we can't really evaluate until we see some future cards.
Yeah. I think, I'll maybe take the hint here, and also the clock hint. And let's talk about some of the other cards that we've gotten spoiled as well. So we've got Working Prototype. This is a 1-cost asset subtyped hostile. This is a click hosted power counter. Whenever you res a card, including this asset in parenthetical text, place 1 power counter on this asset. Click hosted power counter, gain 3 credits. Click 5 hosted power counters, gain 6, add 1 installed resource to the top of the stack. It is 2 influence, 2 to trash. And this is a good old HB cop giving a thumbs up. So initial thoughts be they...
the Wayland cop giving a thumbs up.
As opposed to the Wayland cop giving a thumbs up, which maybe art you recognize. And Himberly, glad to see you come by the channel. Oh, hold on one sec. Himberly, glad to see you come by the channel. Apologies for all of my attempts at pronouncing any of the names in the set. I hope you'll forgive me for that. All right, but Jamie, it seems like you have something you want to say about Working Prototype, and I don't want to step over you on that one.
Oh, I was just memeing, but I do have things to say about it. So I'm really glad we got this card in the set. Having been a fan of Lakshmi Smart Fabrics, like before people realized it was actually good, I knew that a res-derez based package really needed something like Lakshmi. And I was like, look, what it does, that's your department, dev team. But I really want to see that first ability. Whenever you res a card, place a power counter on this somewhere in the set. So I lobbied them for that, and we got it.
Sindarin,
where I landed is I want to play this in Mirror Morph. The end.
Yeah, Mirror Morph would be fun. The first thing I'm seeing here really is being able to add an installed resource to top of the stack. That's like being able to mess with the runner's like resources without them being tagged, and you're gaining money. That seems pretty neat.
So rude. It also bypasses Seb and Manuel for that matter.
Yeah,
you're not I'm not trashing them. I'm just putting them away for a while.
And we just saw an asset that kind of can potentially let you buff out a lot of cards that you can res and de-res. Yeah, so I think the fact that this is whenever you res a card, you're going to get counters on here pretty quickly.
Yeah, including itself. So like this and Warm Reception can like be de-resing itself and re-resing itself over and over again to get these power counters. It can get up to 5 pretty quickly, I think, with the tools that are already available to HB with these reveals.
Yeah, I think it's, I saw some people talking about like, oh, you're never really going to see this get to 5. And I'm like, I feel like if this starts, yeah, I was just thinking like, okay, let's say like, even if I just have Warm Reception and Working Prototype, like I can get 3 triggers just between these 2 cards. Actually, no, I can get 4 triggers between these 2 cards. And so it's also the thing of like, oh, if I res this on the corp as the corp and I leave it with like 1 power counter on it, or maybe 2 power counters, does the runner have to go and trash this if I like have ice and cards on the board? Like it becomes, I think, this like interesting calculus for the runner of like, yeah, a single Working Prototype on its own, I don't need to trash. But when there's a couple cards on the board, do I need to start worrying about getting my twinning bounced? Like, if I lose my twinning progress, maybe I'm losing my out against these kind of asset spam decks.
I think the flip side to that maybe is, given that you're not limited on how many times you can click this per turn. Like, it is possible people might not just let it get to 5 because, hey, you just res 2 things. Oh, that's 6 credits. Which is comparable to a regolith, especially as you can like just keep adding more power counters to it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think if you're going to res 3 other cards during the game, then the only thing regolith has on this is an extra point of trash cost. Like, it's cheaper to res. It starts with 1 use, and you're gonna res stuff in HB, whether it's ice or other incidental things. You're gonna get your 5 uses that regolith would give you pretty easily, I think.
I think structurally this card looks a lot like MCA Austerity Policy. Like, it's got the 2-click abilities, but the fact that it doesn't trash itself makes it potentially a longer lasting regolith as well if you're just using that first ability. And I think every time I look at this, I forget. Oh, right, it doesn't trash itself on its ultra powerful version. You can keep doing this. You can keep bullying the runner.
Yeah, I keep looking back at it as well, like similar to what you just said, Pat. Like how I keep expecting to only be able to click it once per turn as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the case.
Anything better to bounce than twinning? And is it liberated account?
I mean, they go really poor dropping I mean, not better, but like see the light leave their eyes as you bounce their freshly installed casts.
Ooh, personal contact.
Freshly installed cast is going to feel pretty bad. Personal contacts, of course.
Yeah, and like bouncing a fresh daily cast is probably pretty good. Yeah, you know, it's
environmental testing with 3 counters on it.
I mean, now you're just trying to bully me.
Yeah, I'm going to be so bullied by this card. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it is tricky because like, yeah, a lot of resources are kind of meant to like get value the turn you put them down. Like, you know, chat is calling out like Beatrice, and I'm like, you know, if the one's installing Beatrice, they're probably using her click ability the same turn. So I'm not sure that you're actually coming out like, yeah, you're kind of getting 2 credits back as the court, but I don't know that you're super excited about this. I think, you know, so I think there is a reasonable criticism of this card that like, what resource are you that excited to bounce that sees a ton of play? And I do think, you know, I think bouncing one of the like central forces in the metagame is like not to be completely discounted, right? But you know, it is I think a pretty fair thought on the card.
Alex Boyd says a stacked urban art vernissage as well. Pretty mean.
Again, we're just bullying Shaper players, and they're already down. So I don't know if we need like, is this working prototype? Just like working prototype, how can we make sure Shapers never see any play?
And Andre says, I'm convinced the flavor text is a reference to calibrating your y-axis in Halo.
Interesting.
I can see where he's getting that wrong idea from. Sure.
We all disagree as the whole Netrunner community that you're not allowed to bounce Paula's Cafe with this.
That is actually, you're right. That is the type of resource you really want to bounce is something like a Paul's Cafe. Because you can just wipe out the runner completely. Yeah, you know, I was joking like the other day, like, oh, off-campus apartment Seb. Oop, that's not. Where are we? There's off-campus apartment. Like, yeah, this bouncing something like this, a card that hosts a resource that hosts other resources seems like the ideal target for working prototype. Asmund getting a shout out as well. Yeah, runner drops an Asmund on the board, and you say nope, and flip them into the bin. Seems kind of fun.
Back to Eternal too. I just thinking, like Paul's Cafe mentioned, like personal workshop as well. Just
yeah,
yeah, the actual good Paul's Cafe like card. Yep. However, personal workshop does have counterplay because you can spend off the counters and install stuff before they take their action.
Oh, good. Yep. Just what Eternal needs. Even more Clan Vengeance mind games. Anyway.
So in conclusion, I think this is a pretty respectable answer that Thunderbolt is giving us to Mirror Morph's nano etching matrix.
Yeah, does this obsolete nano etching matrix in Mirror Morph, or is it nano etching matrix actually just much better?
I don't know. I will let you know in a couple months once I've played the deck a bunch.
Okay, well, we've got a couple more cards to talk about, and maybe an answer of part of like, okay, those have low trash costs. What is HB going to do about it? Well, they'll engage in some active policing. This is a zero-cost Operation Terminal Gray Ops. So Tally, was that her? No, what's her name? My goodness, I'm just trying to pull all of the niche Eternal cards today. Tally Peralt?
Talia.
Tally Peralt is a card that exists.
Doesn't she care about... Yeah, she cares about Gray Ops. I'm not even...
She does.
Yes, that's
Yep.
right.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Tally Perot. There we go.
And the 2-cost connection that gives you a tag.
Anyway, Andre also calling out the coolest art framing. Yeah, this is a fantastic piece by Maron Rules? No, Ruiz. I'm sorry. The eye looks kind of like an L at this distance. Apologies.
I was going to say, is this art meant to be a Hellion?
I mean, it's probably a legally distinct Hellion, but yeah, it does seem like a Hellion beta test, right?
I think that those Hellions are out of beta. I think this is the Hellion production model.
Yeah, prime version.
Yeah, here's the... Oh, that's not a great one. Alpha test also has a Hellion on it, right?
Yeah, I think the Alpha is... Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so this one does look a bit bulkier, a bit more final form, I guess. But anyways, I should read the rest of the card text beyond Operation Terminal Grey Ops. It's play only if the owner stole or trashed a corp card during their last turn. After you resolve this operation, your action phase ends. You may install one card from HQ. The owner gets -1 click allotted for their next turn. Threat 3. You may pay 2 credits. If you do, the runner gets -1 click allotted for their next turn. And this is 3 influence out of HB. So, Sindarin, I guess, is there any deck that you're like, oh yeah, I think active policing seems like a thing I want to kind of try out right when the set drops?
I mean, just to be unfair to the runner, let's combo it with MCA austerity policy and just...
Here's your 1-click turn, runner. Enjoy it.
Otherwise, it seems to be like just a lot of those. What was it? Was it Santa's Bath Thule deck really limiting you on your clicks? Something that could potentially fit in there. Otherwise, Otherwise, just general meanness is what this seems to be.
Mm-hmm. I really like this. I feel like this can go into a lot of different decks because it really is just, install support with also frustrating the runner. I really like this cycle of 3 semi-reprisals that we've gotten. I think these are pretty cool. Obviously, this isn't like the game ender that Oppo can be, but pretty effective for 0 cost. I like it.
Yeah, and like just taxing clicks.
Scoops that there are 3.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, Cinder, why don't you keep going with your point? Sorry.
I was going to say, like taxing clicks is also just like how often HP will go to score out, right? Like we're comboing Managam, like Anoetics, and then I guess Ikawa as well. It's just going to make that much harder.
Yeah, Thule likes this a lot too.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Thule in a second. I think like even the fact this goes like install a card from HQ means that like, oh, maybe you can even think about playing this in like a PD style deck where it's like, oh yeah, I have my 4/2 in a seamless, and active policing actually just enables me to kind of lock down the runner a little bit more than I was able to already do. But yeah, the Thule interaction also seems like it's very much worth calling out because you need all of your clicks against Thule, and active policing, triggers in ways that are very harmonious with a lot of the Thule game plans we're seeing around.
But here's an interesting thought. We haven't seen much of Jinteki yet in this set, But sort of remembering back in the day when the original flavor Jinteki Glacier was replicating perfection and used to import enhanced login protocol, which is a card that kind of reminds me of this.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, maybe you can make a Jinteki Glacier. I mean, I think you could also even just like in PE, right? You could look at like using this to set up Reaper function kills as well, where you you like do some net damage and then like tell the runner, oh, you can only draw like 1 to 2 cards, or maybe even like false lead the runner, and so they have no clicks. And though you have to make sure that they're on threat 3, or that you're not dropping from threat 3 to threat 2 when you forfeit the false lead. But yeah, I don't know. It's like a surprisingly flexible click denial card that definitely seems like it's got a couple different options for it.
You can forfeit the false lead on the runner's turn, so it's not really going to interfere with your threat value.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. And then Sindarin, you were saying something there.
Yeah, you're just adding on to what you said. It's definitely versatile, and it's not necessarily like a single niche deck. Like fits in a single niche deck. Like it can go in multiple archetypes.
Yeah, I think this is a threat at a basic, probably any type of HB deck, or most types of HB deck. I really like it.
Cool. Let's talk about the final card as we hit the hour mark, so we're going to not be too far over today. And setting up for a very difficult tomorrow for me, I think. We've got Corporate Hospitality. This is a 4-cost operation. It is a double transaction, so HB apparently getting all the modified operations. As an additional cost to play this operation, spend a click. Gain 6 credits and draw 2 cards. Add 1 card from archives to HQ. And this operation has a trash cost of 1 and is 2 influence. I'll be honest, this is maybe the card I'm most hyped from the entire set, because I love me some fully op synergies. I'm
you
looking.
Love to gain 2 credits and draw 2 cards, do you?
I love to gain 2 credits and draw 2 cards, and then put a fully operation back in my hand and spend 1 click and 1 credit to gain like 11 credits. It's the best.
This feels like
2 credits and draw 2 cards so many times.
This feels like an Archive Memories sort of plus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And I was quite happy not to have Archive Memories around, honestly. The fact that this is just Archive Memories plus a clearance, I guess it's whichever one of the clearances costs 1 to trash is the one it's fused with. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel, but I think it's quite powerful. I think the 1 trash cost is good, and I hope it's enough to not make this feel bad.
Yeah, final level.
It's very clever design, because I think a lot of the gameplay patterns that led to the Archive Memories ban were, I'm going to play some impactful operation, pick it back up, and then play it again the same turn. And with this being a double, you can't easily use it in that way.
That's a very good point. Yeah, you make a really solid point there.
Yeah, there was like 2 big patterns. One was playing Archive Memories to pick up a boom, which was that was a 3-click combo, but it was Archive Memories for 1, double with boom, or punitive Archive Memories punitive. And so both of those aren't enabled by Corporate Hospitality. But Sindarin, I heard you. Yeah.
This is a card I think I'd be really interested if design development released like an article on how this card evolved over time, how the numbers sort of arrived at where they are. And I'm not saying that the numbers like they seem bad or anything, but I with so many sort of like 4 to play, 6 cost, 2 cards, install card, like it would be really interesting to see how this arrived at where it is.
I agree. I'd be really fascinated to see that, but I'd be really fascinated to see about most cards, honestly.
Sure, Pat, but this one in particular, then.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like this one has some very, very specific numbers on it that they must have like debated about for a while.
Yeah, I do know a little bit of the story behind that, but I'll have to go and bug some dev members. And I keep being like, oh, we should really have a chat where we talk about a couple cards and how they landed and what the process looked like for them to get to the numbers they did. Um, and like it's always an interesting path, but it's not my story to tell here. So, um, yeah, I think another interesting thing about this is two influence. You can play this out of faction, I think, somewhat cheaply, um, and you probably will see it in a couple places. Like I've been looking at my op builds, and I'm like, well, maybe I have two influence to spare for this. Like corporate hospitality into
People used to
extract.
spend 2 influence on archive memories, right? So I
Yeah,
don't see why not.
Mhm.
It's not exactly the same, but it's definitely got that parallel.
Yeah, there's a lot of big operations out of every other faction. I mean, like end of the lines or something like that. You want to make sure that you have a backup in case one of them's trashed.
yeah. Um, You've got extract is like obviously a big one for Wayland. Like a lot of corp decks are built around having a couple powerful cards. I actually, I should mention Rashida, right? Like you Rashida into a corporate hospitality, then corporate hospitality, and then install the Rashida, and you're cooking with some real gas there for the corp. Um,
Mm.
oh, and Andre from the Metropole Grid is asking a great question that I happen to know the answer to. So Nuvem says, how does Nuvem and corporate hospitality interact? And so corporate Nuvem says whenever you finish resolving an operation, and so you resolve all the text include on corporate hospitality, including adding the card from archives to HQ before you resolve the Nuvem ability of look at the top card of R&D and potentially trash it. Now that said, I think these two cards still probably play pretty well together because you can like
Mhm.
play an operation, and if it trashes the agenda, you can just corporate hospitality, put that agenda right back in your hand. Or if it doesn't, you can like just burn through your deck with more corporate hospitality and like get back the big event you were playing. And like this feels like part of the way that Nuvem can really put the pedal to the metal and put some pressure on the runner's economy.
If you're Nuvem and you follow up another operation with corporate hospitality, that's like 4 cards down into R&D, right? So you've got the one that you get to surveil from the first Nuvem trigger, which you can then trash to get it out of the way and either choose it as the card that you pick up with corporate hospitality or not. And then you actually draw 2 with corporate hospitality itself,
Mhm.
and then you get another Nuvem trigger to peek at the next card in R&D and see if you want to leave it there or trash it. Just
Sabotage
pretty
players
pretty deep.
looking on in horror. I was gonna trash your deck. Please stop.
Yeah, and also like the R&D lock stuff out that we see a lot of, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to twinning, see the top 3, and then I have like 2 whole turns to kind of faff about. Uh, and now corporate hospitality just burns right through that. At least you knew them. Sindarin, I want to give you some thoughts on corporate hospitality, and then we'll probably start doing a wrap up for today.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. Like it seemed like super versatile. I like how I hadn't even considered Nuvem, so that it can go outside of HB pretty nicely. That's really interesting. I also want to like, is it Aku in chat said that they like that there's football soccer going on in the background, which I don't think we've seen much of in a Brazilian set. So that's also really neat to see.
Yeah.
This is on the telly, but that's not just on the telly. It's also they're at a corporate box at a
Yeah.
stadium. Like there's a monitor displaying what's happening, but it's happening right outside. You can see the field.
Yeah, the monitors for the close-ups.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. So I guess we got through 7 cards in just over an hour. So no
Cards.
idea how we're gonna get through even more tomorrow, but we'll figure that one out tomorrow. Um,
It was 8. So
oh, 8 today. Yes, it was 8. It's 8 today, and I think probably 10 tomorrow. So for tomorrow's guests who might be listening, get your speed talking ready. Um, but I want to give all of y'all time to talk about either the thing you're most excited about from what we're actually now getting to the point where a lot of cards have been spoiled. So it can be thing you're most excited about that has been spoiled, or thing you're most looking forward to, or that you're hoping for from cards that are yet to be spoiled. So Jamie, I'll start with you for this one.
yeah. So there's like a pendulum that happens, right? In like how tight the theme that a faction has in a cycle is. So like if you look at Parhelion, every card in HB in Parhelion, except maybe one, was very tightly directed at Tule. And so many of the cards that we've seen so far in preview season fit into the theme that their faction is doing, whether it's HB, Anarch. Um, uh, I think so much in the set is like it fits into the theme, but it's more flexible. It doesn't like only make sense in the context of that. And I'm really excited about like how broad the deck building possibilities are going to be when we have the whole set.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Patrick, I'm gonna throw it over to you for what you're most excited about from what we've seen or what's upcoming.
Sure. Man, there's so much. Obviously, there's still so much. Like, there's a card coming up for Thunderbolt that I'm really excited for people to see that I think will really make that ID sing, but will not say anything about. Uh, and I'm really excited for more Jinteki reveals because I got to work on the initial theming and like visual ideas for that set, for that faction, this set, including the character Charlotte, who I wrote a whole story about because I liked the idea of her so much. So looking forward to people meeting her, and yeah, I'll pass that on.
And I think we've got some Jinteki cards tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Andre in the chat. We got them tomorrow, right? And on time. You've finished the whole video.
Don't stress him out. Don't stress him out.
Yeah. And finally, Sindarin, I guess, last and once again, most certainly not least, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you're excited about from upcoming set so far.
As all the Anarch cards have been coming together, seeing the synergies with Seb is got me pretty excited. Like I'm now really eager to play, really focus on the play triple of Seb, Manuel, and Wheels. I think that's going to be fun. And today, I think the thing I talked most about was possibly working prototype. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with resin cards and gaining credits and maybe making shapers unhappy.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and I think once again a shout out to the Neon Static crew for showing the cards in play. I thought that was that was such a cool thing to see, and I think it increased everyone's hype quite a bit. But yeah, I'm going to start wrapping up. But I know, Jamie, you had a plug you wanted to get in.
The other thing I'm excited about is that the other game I work on, World Breakers, is almost here. The second printing of the core set, Advent of the Khanate, and the first expansion, the Indigo Sisterhood. We did a Kickstarter for those last year, and the boat has arrived in port. We expect U.S. orders to be shipping this month, the rest of the world's in early April. So get hype for World Breakers. You can still order copies. And I have a $10 off coupon code that you can use if you haven't gotten your copy of World Breakers yet and you want to go order it. The code is always be running. Because Ellie knew I was going to be sharing this on the Netrunner stream. So you can also use the link that I've just dropped in the Twitch chat, and you can order World Breakers with the expansion. And yeah, Ellie and I are the two main people doing design on that. I, in particular, led the scenario design for the solo campaign in the expansion, and I'm really proud of my work. I'm also the rules person for World Breakers as well, and I'm proud of that too. So I think the game is great. I'm excited for more people locally to have it so that we can like actually start doing some meetups and playing. But yeah, check it out if you're not familiar, and then hype it up if you are familiar.
All right.
I am really fond of World Breakers. I will second that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, with that said, thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow with another banger, Stuff to the Gills episode. We're in peak spoiler season, everything hitting back to back to back. got an all-star cast again tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you all then. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for doing this, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.